Thank you. Good evening to you. Coming up on BBC London. Elected in 1987 as the first black MP, now confusion over whether Hackney's Diane Abbott will be allowed to stand for Labour in the election. What do her constituents make of it?
Diane Abbott is very, very well loved.
I think if she's a party member, she should be allowed to stand. I would be happy to have a different candidate for Labour.
And in Hackney tonight, there's a rally in support of Diane Abbott.
Also ahead tonight. A sharp rise in the number of reported cases of sexual harassment of young girls and teenagers on London's transport network. Plus, from daily to weekly, London's Evening Standard plans to axe its daily print edition. Calls to save the former school and wartime hospital that's topped a list of endangered buildings. And
even much more delicious.
we meet the father and son behind the homemade Peckham patties, now filling supermarket shelves. Very warm welcome to the programme. Nice to have you with us. We start with more on the confusion over the long-standing London Labour MP Diane Abbott and the upcoming general election. The country's first black woman MP and her party leader, Sir Keir Starmer, are giving different accounts of whether she can or cannot stand for Labour on the 4th of July. Well, tonight a rally is being held in the constituency she's represented for 37 years. And our political editor, Tim Donovan, is there tonight. Hi, Tim.
Hi, Riz. Yeah, people are just beginning to gather. Not a huge crowd, but a rally due here in support of Diane Abbott after a day, yes, you could say that, of some confusion, probably worth reminding those people who haven't kept across the detail of this how we got here. And it all began in April last year when Diane Abbott wrote to The Observer a letter in which she was talking about Irish, Jewish and traveller people suffering prejudice, but she said that they didn't experience racism all their lives like black people. She was suspended by Labour at that point. But now we learn from Newsnight, we heard this last night, that in December 2023 the investigation was completed and she was given a formal warning. So 5 months ago she then did an online anti-Semitism awareness course. And now we get to today, and she has been telling the BBC, among others, that she has been barred from standing in the election. But the leader, Sir Keir Starmer, has said that is not true. So, Riz, yes, confusion, certainly some confusion, and it has left people in this constituency wondering whether Diane Abbott is going to stand or should be standing in this upcoming election.
Whether she wants to stand as Labour or as an independent, I don't know, but if she stands, I'm pretty sure she'll have a huge majority, just like she always has, and I would definitely support her. I think she's been very badly treated.
I think if she's a party member, she should be allowed to stand. I would be happy to have a different candidate for Labour, but that's neither here nor there.
So, we have the left-wing campaign group Momentum. We have a number of unions saying that Miss Abbott has been treated badly and she should be able to stand in this seat for Labour. Lord Boateng, a former Labour cabinet minister, has also said that she should be on the Labour benches. And we spoke today to a former Labour councillor here at Hackney who resigned partly because of the treatment of Diane Abbott.
The people of Hackney North and Stoke Newington elected her and has elected her since 1987. Why should she not stand? Absolutely, she's the people's MP, people want her as MP, and you could see the movement and mobilization that people are doing for Diane, because Hackney is Diane.
And Tim, obviously now questions about how Labour have handled this so far and what they do now.
Yeah. Certainly questions about whether it should have been allowed to get to this point, and as you see there are questions raised about what has been going on over these last few weeks when it has been over to the Chief Whip, the Labour Chief Whip apparently, to decide on her future. There is an issue for Labour now about what they do because this has apparently blown up after negotiations, discussions may have been being had with Diane Abbott, where she may, some suggest, have wanted to stand down as long as she had been invited back into the party, which we know happened just yesterday. Meanwhile, of course, the Conservatives have been raising this as an issue, suggesting that Sir Keir Starmer hasn't been straight because he was saying that disciplinary process had not been concluded.
Well, he's said literally on Friday on broadcast interviews, and he sent out his shadow ministers to do exactly the same, to say this is a totally unresolved issue and there's still ongoing process. The truth is that what had happened is that this was resolved last December. We now know from the Labour Party that's the case, and that in February actually what had come forwards was very clear that Diane Abbott's sanction had been made clear then, and he was trying to pretend that that wasn't the case.
Where are we left now, Riz? It's a question of timing and time running out before we know whether Diane Abbott could still be the Labour candidate here. And what happens is the National Executive Committee, the party's ruling body, is due to decide whether it is going to endorse her in this seat. It has to endorse many candidates up and down the country. Now that becomes a decision over which there will be particular scrutiny, and we don't yet know whether she's going to be standing here as a Labour candidate, and if she were ruled out, or that was ruled out, whether she would even contemplate then standing as an independent.
OK, we wait and see. Tim, thanks very much for taking us through that. That's our political editor, Tim Donovan. And we'll have a full list of candidates, of course, standing in each of the seats. That's on the BBC website once the nominations close. Plenty more ahead this Wednesday evening, including...
Days of rain means lots of mud. So where does that leave Brockwell Park's festivals?
And I'm outside the school built in 1897 and used as a hospital during World War I, whose future is now at risk.
Next, young women and girls are being urged to report sexual harassment on the capital's transport network. New figures show a sharp rise in the number of reported offences among those aged between 10 and 19. But it could be higher, as British Transport Police believe many incidents go unreported. Jessica Ure has been hearing one young woman's experience.
Immediately when I got on, a man stood really, really close to me, and I thought, that's a bit strange. I'm going to move a bit further down the train because I feel really uncomfortable. I moved, and so did he.
Lex was 18 when she says she was followed, then assaulted by a man on the Underground.
He started screaming and shouting at me. He was hurling all kinds of abuse at me, pulling on my clothes, just doing anything he possibly could to get my attention. I was just petrified. I felt so small and vulnerable, and I was very aware that he could kind of do whatever he wanted.
She managed to leave the station with the help of 2 other girls, but it wasn't long before she was followed again.
I heard screaming, and I thought, what's that? I turned around, and there he was, about 10 steps behind me, and he followed me the whole way.
Lex isn't alone. New data from British Transport Police shows a 33% increase in sexual offences reported by young girls and teens on London's transport network. In 2023, 320 young women aged between 10 and 19 reported incidents of sexual harassment, increasing from 240 in 2022. But the crime remains underreported. Police want to encourage victims to come forward.
Text 61016 in your phone if you save it under British Transport Police. The good thing about the text service is that you're not making a phone call, so you can actually do that discreetly. What will happen is that will go through to our control room, and from that either an officer will be dispatched to the area that you're in, or if it's not something that requires an immediate response, then investigators will be allocated that inquiry. And our goal is to make the London Underground and Overground services a hostile environment for perpetrator.
TfL told us in a statement they were deeply sorry that Lex had experienced this horrific attack in one of their stations, and that the safety of women and girls was an absolute priority. The Mayor's team told us he continues to work with National Rail and policing partners to ensure a zero-tolerance approach. Jessica Ure, BBC London.
Now to what many would describe as a staple of London life, the Evening Standard. Today, the end of an era was announced with plans to axe its daily print edition and go weekly instead. The paper first launched as far back as 1827, and it was in 2009 that it became free. But in the last 5 years, circulation has dropped dramatically to 250,000, with the paper losing more than £80 million over the last 6 years. Our reporter Vincent McAviney has more.
It's the same old story. Is bombers over open towns smashing civilians.
For 197 years, it's been in print as a daily newspaper for the capital. Predating even the founding of the Met Police, the Evening Standard has covered the reigns of 9 monarchs, the governments of 39 prime ministers, and survived 2 world wars. It's reported on the events big and small that have shaped this city and told the stories of countless Londoners.
Evening Standard. Cheers, mate.
But in part due to the pandemic, you might not be hearing that familiar cry on the streets for much longer.
Evening Standard. Thank you.
Because the publisher has decided to scrap the daily newspaper, go online and print a new weekly edition. That's because there are fewer commuters coming in and out of London, and with Wi-Fi now down in the tubes, more people are just using their devices. It's being seen as a blow to the London media landscape.
When I'm on the tube, a lot of people, they got it in the evening when they're going home, and I think we will miss a lot.
I understand it, because that's the new trend, and my sons don't read the papers.
We need it, like on the train, sometimes the Wi-Fi isn't always great, especially underground, like we need to know what's going on.
But it seems the costs have got too high.
Is something that's been a long time coming. This paper has lost £85 million over the last 6 years. There's been a struggle to make it work financially. There's already been a lot of cutbacks at the paper in recent years, so it's already been very much slimmed down. But who is going to be going to those council meetings? Who's going to be telling the public about what's going on in their communities? There's definitely a bit of a gap in the market that needs filling.
For one former editor, it's a sad day, but not a surprise.
Advertising hasn't swung back, and you just don't get as much money through digital advertising as you did traditionally through print. The Standard would have also have been coping with a terrible rise in printing costs and paper costs, staff rises. It's a terribly sad day and a very worrying day for all the staff and all of those who've been loyally selling the Evening Standard for so many years across our great city.
It's unclear how many redundancies there will be. For Londoners, it will likely leave them less connected to the city as they commute through it. Vincent McAviney, BBC London.
OK, a roundup of some of the day's other stories now. Police investigating the fatal stabbing of a woman on a beach in Bournemouth have arrested a 20-year-old man from Croydon. Amy Gray, who was 34, died in the attack on Friday evening. Susan Hall's mayoral campaign did not break the law, Scotland Yard has found, after Labour alleged that illegal tactics were used in the distribution of a Conservative leaflet designed to look like a penalty charge notice. The Mets confirmed that following an assessment of the complaint raised by Sadiq Khan's campaign, they had found no offences had been committed by the Tories. And Chelsea have confirmed Sonia Pasta as their new manager of their women's team. The Frenchwoman led Lyon to this season's Champions League final and succeeds Emma Hayes, who left after 12 years in charge to become USA head coach. Chelsea also remain in talks with Leicester's Enzo Maresca regarding the position of men's team manager following the departure of Maurizio Pochettino. Now it's that time of the year and festival season is underway at Brockwell Park. However, not everyone is happy about it. Over the long weekend, there were 4 festivals, but once again, there's frustration by some of the local community that the bad weather and heavy footfall has turned the park into a muddy mess, with a free event due to take place today cancelled. The council says the events bring in money and they'll work to manage the impact of heavy rain on the grass. Layla Hayes has the story.
Brockwell Park in South London, now a sea of mud. A busy weekend of festivals combined with heavy rain means much of the grass has now become sludge. There was supposed to be a free family festival called Brockwell Bounce here today, but because of this, that's now been cancelled, and the council say the site is unsafe for children. Peter Bradley's flat overlooks the park. He says it's not just the mud, The festivals mean locals can barely use the site.
Public parks are not for paid events. They're about joy, they're about local people, families having a walk, dog walkers walking their dogs, physical and mental health and well-being. We see that as the focus of parks, and these events completely take away from that.
The festivals raise much needed cash for Lambeth Council. It says it does what it can to minimise any damage, and in a statement told us, the council is currently reviewing the impacts of the rainy conditions on further events planned in Brockwell Park during the rest of May and early June. There is an agreement that any repairs needed to the park will be paid for by the event's organiser, not Lambeth Council. Today, those visiting the park had mixed views.
Honestly, it's quite fun. If we can get free resident tickets, then that's great. It's very close to home, makes it easy. Most of them are fairly child-friendly, so we can take the kids as well.
Would really like to know where the revenue that's come in goes elsewhere in the borough. Like, I'm sure it earns hundreds of thousands of pounds, but it's good to know what that's spent on.
And the park was just looking absolutely stunning, and everyone was really excited to use it again. And now it's completely ruined. It's unusable to the local community, and it's not really okay.
Organisers of this weekend's Mighty Hoopla Festival say they're now laying 20,000 square metres of ground cover across the site. But the advice is wear sensible footwear if you don't want to get stuck in the mud. Layla Hayes, BBC London.
Still to come before 7.
Even much more delicious.
We meet the father and son behind the homemade Peckham patties, now filling supermarket shelves. Before that, though, it was once a wartime hospital for soldiers injured on the battlefields of Europe. But the Kennington Boys' School in South London has been abandoned for over a decade. And today it topped the list of One Heritage Group's endangered buildings. Harry Lowe can tell us more.
It's just a tragedy that it's left empty.
127 years old, but its future at risk. Kennington School for Boys is London's latest building to be added to the Victorian Society's endangered list.
So this building is really fabulous, and if it's lost, I think we lose a really important part of South London history. It's a brilliant example of a late 19th century school, that building of romance and fantasy. It's an exciting romantic building, but it also has that wonderful World War I connection with Vera Brittain.
Here we go. Vera, stop it! Writer Vera Brittain, whose 1933 book Testament of Youth was made into a film, served here as a nurse when it became part of the first General London Hospital during World War I. Her brother was later treated there for injuries sustained during the Battle of the Somme. Vera Brittain described the school as one of the few distinguished buildings in the dismal, dreary, dirty wilderness of South London. Locals believe a fresh focus on its future is cause for optimism.
I'm more hopeful now that it's got onto the Victorian Society list. I think that's great, and the fact that people have come forward and said that they're keen to see something happen, then let's have a bit of hope that something good will come out of it.
We are very concerned. This building has been decaying for the last 12 years since it stopped being used as a school, and we've repeatedly contacted Lambeth Council, not only to find out what their plans of the building, what the state of the building is, but what they're going to do about it. And unfortunately, despite being told that works are going to take place, that hasn't happened.
Lambeth Council told us the council initially looked at a temporary fix, including mending the roof, but even this would have cost £1.5 million. Considering the cost of this work and pressures on our budget, we are now looking at the feasibility of securing funding for the much-needed renovation. For now, the fate of the Grade 2 listed building remains unknown. Harry Lowe, BBC London.
To the upcoming Paris Olympics this summer now, and among the athletes hoping to qualify for Team GB, London sprinter Desiree Henry. The 28-year-old from Enfield has had to battle injury and find her own sponsorship in a bid to continue an Olympic journey which began right here in the capital at the London 2012 opening ceremony. Chris Slegg has been to relive that moment with her.
London 2012, 16-year-old Desiree Henry
is one of 7 youngsters to light the Olympic cauldron. Looking back 12 years on, her Olympic ambition still burns brightly.
I feel like this is literally where it kind of began, where I really had the motivation to say, hey, I really want to make the next Olympics. I don't want to be there just as a torchbearer, but I want to be behind where the athletes are getting ready to compete. And this, if anything, ignited the beginning of like my real journey and wanting to be an Olympian.
She fulfilled that dream just 4 years later, helping Great Britain win bronze in the 4x100 metre relay in Rio. A devastating injury then put her career on hold and she missed out on Tokyo. No longer benefiting from GB funding, she had to train around a full-time job to revive her hopes of reaching Paris.
When we arrived, the guy in reception said, "You've been hitting the track at 2 in the morning."
When you have a goal and dream, you won't make excuses. You'll figure it out. Even if it doesn't sound logical, such as doing a session at 2 a.m., I knew what my reality was. I knew that I had to work, and I just thought, if that's what it takes, then I'm going to go ahead and do it.
She's now back training full-time. Sponsorship from an insurance company allowing her to fully focus on trying to qualify for Paris.
Honestly, how do you rate your chances?
Right after missing out on Tokyo, honestly, my sights were just set again on Paris because I thought, I'm still young enough to make an Olympics, let's go. We don't have time for a pity party. I've got to keep my head down and get back to training.
If you could speak to that 16-year-old self,
yes,
lighting the Olympic cauldron, what would you say?
Interestingly, I think my 16-year-old self would have a lot more to say to me. Just to be fearless, just to give it everything that you've got, just to not be distracted about what's going on around you, and as always, just give it 100%.
Desiree Henry's Olympic story may just have another chapter to come. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Good luck to her. To another couple of Londoners now, this time cooking up a storm. Mike Williams and his dad Paul have been delighting locals with their patties for more than a decade. But business can be tough. This is one of those stories when, just as they were about to give up the business, they headed to Notting Hill Carnival and sold thousands. Then later, catching the eye of a supermarket giant. Anna O'Neill has been to meet them.
Now you're gonna even smell it. Even much more delicious.
Chef Ken Roy is mixing the filling for South London's Flake Bake Jamaican patties.
When you have one of these patties, it's love at first bite.
What makes an amazing Jamaican patty is the spice and herbs. So you have to have your Scotch bonnet, your spring onion, your thyme, and all the secret spices that we use in our patty. But the flake, Anna, has to be perfect.
Started in Southwark by Mike and Dad Paul more than a decade ago, the post-pandemic world was tough. They were about to shut down until they entered the competition that changed everything.
The winner is Flake Bake.
Thank you. It's been an absolute roller coaster. It's from one interview to the next, patty selling out in store. Yeah, it has been life-changing.
Also a bit of a roller coaster is getting the patty just right.
This is where we actually make our patties. So you guys drop in the filling and Desmond folds it and then the patty's made. Now you're going to have a go and see how you get on.
Great. First patty.
Come on. Wait. And now you're going to try and make your own patty. Go on.
It's not working out very well.
Now you're going to fold over.
Yeah.
Just about.
I'm going to mark it.
Are you going to mark it? A for Anna. Ah, amazing. Well done. It's now going to go in the oven for 23 minutes, and then we'll see what the final outcome is. It's exciting times.
Mike makes about 20,000 patties a week here for local businesses, but for the bigger supermarket orders, the patties are made elsewhere on a more industrial level.
Anna patty. Look, Anna, your patty's all ready. Can't wait to try it.
There's no time for the patty to cool before it's time to eat it piping hot. Should we take a bite together?
Okay, let's go for it.
1, 2, 3.
Go on.
Anna O'Neill, BBC London. That is flaky bacon. I feel flaky bacon.
we wouldn't know. She didn't bring any back. I'll have words with Anna. Such an uplifting story. And it also feels uplifting to see some sunshine today and to have Louise Lear here with the weather.
Oh, Louise Lear here with some good news into the weekend. Yes, the weather story is drying up. In fact, we could have almost a week of dry weather to look forward to. We haven't seen weather like that, I'm afraid, since January. Just take a look at Islington, though. Earlier on this afternoon, not bad. There were a few showers around, yes, but pleasant enough for many of us as we went through the day. Now, in actual fact, we are going to see some showers around. Today, the showers have been mostly in Scotland, but I am showing you what's happening in Scotland because they're all pushing down towards the London area for tomorrow, and some of them possibly heavy and thundery as well. But through this evening, we keep some cloud around. It will be a quiet night for getting a good night's sleep. It's not going to be too cold either. Temperatures will hold up into double digits, and any showers will be fairly isolated. So 10 or 11 degrees first thing tomorrow morning. Not a bad start. Some early morning brightness around, but it won't be long before those showers start to develop, and they will then tend to come thick and fast into the afternoon. Some of them heavy, some even with the odd rumble of thunder mixed in there as well. So if you get caught in one of those torrential downpours, you'll certainly know about it. 15 to 17 degrees at 63 Fahrenheit, and still a little disappointing really as we head towards June. Now we have got this weather front to ease away during Friday, so still the risk of some showers around, but look, high pressure is pushing in from the west. So as we go through Friday, again, we'll be chasing some cloud. There will be some showers, most frequent out to the east of London. So further west, fewer showers around, but still those temperatures only at a maximum of 17 Celsius. Then as we head into the weekend, and more importantly, beyond, the high pressure is likely to stay with us. To begin with, we will be chasing some cloud amounts around, but on the whole, it's going to be dry, settled, and there will be some sunshine around, and it will turn increasingly warmer as we head into the middle of next week. I need a drum roll for that. Back to you, Riz.
You do. We've waited for it. Thanks, Lou. And that is it for now. Thanks very much for watching. You can find out more on the Junior Doctors 5-day strike next month on the BBC News website and app, where there's also a feature about why the Race Across the World TV show is so popular. Don't worry, no spoilers. From me and everyone on the BBC London team, enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.